And welcome to the Pewtercast. Hey Bucs fans, this is Brent Allen, your host, coming at you on bonus content episode number 2. Guys, I want to welcome you into this very special bonus content episode. This is a bonus content episode that I did not know that I was going to be doing. I had not planned on doing this episode. This was certainly not in the list of upcoming ideas and topics that I had in my mind, but as I'm sure most of you guys are aware, if you're following any kind of Bucs news, there was a little situation that happened earlier this week, and honestly, by the time we get to the next episode, and by the time I would be able to talk about it, I'm sure that this situation will have resolved itself or will have taken a couple twists and turns. So guys, I really just wanted to get my thoughts on record and get them out there and share them with you guys as Bucs fans, my fellow Bucs fans more specifically. But guys, first, just talking about bonus content episodes and what these are. You guys may remember that in our first bonus content episode, which if you haven't listened to it yet, I really encourage you to go over there. It's really just meant to be a fun episode. I had a good buddy of mine, JD Duran from the In Session Film Podcast, come on, and what we said was the bonus content episodes are really going to be something where, like, it's stuff that we don't normally get to cover in the main cast. It's stuff that we're not going to get to. It's stuff that just doesn't fit in, and it's also something that we as Bucs fans will get to talk about together with each other for things that maybe don't necessarily have much to do with the Bucs. Kind of what are some of our other fandoms. Now, one of the other things that we can do in bonus content episodes is it gives us an opportunity, it gives us an avenue which really allows us to be able to respond quickly to things that are happening out there. And so I just wanted to come out here and speak on a particular topic that happened this past week, and just discuss that with you guys. And as I'm sure you guys know by now, and you've probably picked up, it's probably actually even in the title as you click to download and listen, that what I'm talking about is the situation that happened with Austin Sefarian Jenkins. He's a Bucs tight end, and I'm calling this episode is the ASJ situation, Austin Sefarian Jenkins. I call him ASJ, as I'm sure a lot of people do. But just a quick recap, I'm not here to report the news. I'm really just here to comment on it and to help us respond to it as Bucs fans. But in case you're not really terribly familiar with it, and I'm not sure how you wouldn't be, here's basically what happened. On Thursday's OTA practice, Coach Cutter told Austin Sefarian Jenkins, he dismissed him from practice. I think he told him to get out of here was the quote that was used. I don't know if that's what Coach Cutter had actually said or not. And turns out Coach Cutter later had said, hey, listen, these are OTA practices. These are voluntary practices. You don't have to be here. And turns out he didn't know what the hell he was doing. So we dismissed him. We let him go. He didn't have to be here for this. And Austin Sefarian Jenkins leaves the field in the middle of the OTA. And he proceeds to send out a tweet where he just said, moving on, which was a little cryptic. I mean, did that mean that he was leaving the team? That he was off the team? Did that mean he was going to try to get off the team? That he was going to seek a trade? Or maybe he'd been kicked off the team, cut from the team? Or did it mean that he was moving on from the situation? He was getting past whatever had just happened. And just as things really kind of sort of seemed to be settling down, because he sent out another tweet saying, hey guys, you're making way too much out of this. Even Coach Cutter said, you're probably making too much out of this. He said, you're making too much out of this. ASJ did on his Twitter account. Things got heated. We're over it. We're getting back to it. Some fans kind of kept tweeting back and forth to Austin Sefarian Jenkins, and he starts responding to people on Twitter. He starts going after these guys on Twitter, and some of the things he said was not great. And apparently Bucs brass certainly was following him and following these events, and they were none too happy. And so, guys, that's what I'm here to really talk about. Like, some of the things that he had talked about on Twitter was he invited one guy over to one Bucs place on Monday and said basically he's going to beat the snot out of him, and then he was going to go sleep with his girlfriend. He had a lot of your mom jokes to other players. He had a lot of I'm going to take your girl kind of things to other players, or not to players, but to fans. And oh my gosh, it was a horrible way. It was like this meltdown, this just great meltdown that was happening on the part of really a professional player. At one point, somebody said, this was funny to me a lot. I actually interacted with it, and they said, for a guy who makes millions of dollars, he really should know the playbook. And ASJ tweeted back, he's like, don't make millions of dollars, Google it. And then somebody at Tuna Can something said, I just Googled it. Turns out you make $1.3 million a year. You got a $2-point-something million signing bonus, or whatever the exact numbers are. It sure looks like millions to me. And ASJ tweeted back going, not smart enough. And the Tuna Can person was like, I don't know about being smart, but I know what $1 million is. And there it is. So, even he kind of got set back. Maybe you can go with the idea that making millions, he's making $1 million, maybe not millions. I don't know. You can figure out whatever, you can parse that out. But some of it was really amusing and some of it was really disheartening. And man, I just wanted to come out and talk about this. Bucs fans, we have been talking about here lately what it is to change the culture at One Buc Place. We've been talking about what it is to go out and to shake off this losing culture that we as an organization, and I say we because I own the Tampa Bay Buccaneers like they're my own. And if you're a fan, I hope you do too. I don't follow any of this media stuff where I can't use first person pronouns. We have been trying to shake off this idea, this identity, this culture of losing. It's almost like the yucks are back. Man, we've got to get rid of that. And episode 2, I spent the entire episode talking about what it is to lose a losing culture. And that was a great episode. Tons of you guys responded to that. And then even in our last episode, episode 3, where I called a fans only meeting, which really was kind of a part 2, like it was a spiritual successor to episode 2, where what we talked about was what are our expectations as fans for this coming season? What should honestly the players' expectations be of us? What are our expectations of the players? And if those expectations aren't met, what is going to be the effect of that? In fact, I titled the top 5 reasons to fire Dirk Koetter immediately. And I didn't mean immediately today. I just meant if these reasons became evident, don't wait till the end of the season. Just fire him now. And I also talked about with each one of those how I don't think that's going to be the case with Coach Koetter. So I say all of that to say Tampa right now is in a spot where we're trying to change the culture. And this is going to be a big part of that. This is really going to factor in to can we or can we not change our culture at One Buc Place. So here are my thoughts on Austin Sefarian Jenkins and where we go with this, because there's been a lot of people out there who have been tweeting, get rid of him. So long, ASJ. He needs to grow up. It's time to cut him. Yay for Koetter. A lot of people are responding very positively to this situation in terms of kind of pointing the finger where it belongs, which is right on ASJ's shoulders. But I wanted to come in and talk to you guys about really some thoughts on this that I had. And the first one is this. I agree with every other Bucs media outlet out there and with all the other fans that say Austin Sefarian Jenkins needs to grow up. He 100%, it's time for him to grow up. He makes too much money. He is a professional football player. He is too old to be acting like a 16-year-old, and he needs to grow up. Where I'm going to depart from some of these people is in saying that he just needs to be dismissed from the team. I'm going to depart from them in saying that he needs to just summarily be traded and we need to wash our hands of him and be done right now. I do not agree with that. I don't think that that's actually going to be the best for our team. I don't think that that's best for ASJ. And I don't think that's best for our culture. And that's really what I want to talk about today. And hopefully you'll kind of agree with me. And hey, by the way, this is a good place to plug it. If you don't agree with me, wait till the end of this episode. This will probably be a shorter episode. If you don't agree with me, or even if you do, shoot me a line, drop me an email. I'd love to know why you think so. Why do you agree with me, or why don't you agree with me? Why should he just be dismissed from the team? Or maybe you don't even agree with my premise that says he needs to grow up. Maybe you think he's just fine and he's right where he needs to be as far as how his behavior has been. I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me a line. It's at over at the Pewtercast at gmail.com, or you can drop me a line on Facebook, facebook.com/the Pewtercast, over on Twitter, which is probably where I'm the most active, which is at the Pewtercast. I'd love to hear from you. So, guys, let's go ahead and break this down. All right, guys, let's go ahead and break this down. So I guess first things first, let's talk about the impetus for this whole thing, which is mostly what I'm going to say is Coach Cutter. I applaud Coach Cutter. I 100% applaud him. I think he made the right decision. If ASJ was out there and he didn't know what he was doing, he wasn't studying the playbook, he wasn't trying his hardest, he wasn't out there being a professional ball player, then something needed to happen. Now, maybe he could have taken some laps, maybe he could have stayed after and done some push-ups, maybe he could whatever, but Coach Cutter said, get out of here. This is an optional time. You don't have to be here. And if you don't want to be here, if you're not going to come out here and play, if you're not going to come out here prepared and be ready for this, you who, by the way, have been sidelined with so many injuries over the first 2 years that you've really only played 1 year, so you've missed half of your career so far, then I'm not going to put up with you. Just get out of here and come back when you're ready. Now, I don't think that meant Cutter was kicking him off the team. I just probably meant for that day is really what I think. And what Cutter did in the middle of that was he sent a statement to the rest of the team. He sent a statement to the rest of the team saying, guys, we're not putting up with this stuff. That kind of idea of, I'm just going to come in and we're just going to kind of go through our parts and, I'm pretty good, so that'll be able just to carry it. And, these are just OTAs, so I don't really have to be ready. And, blah, 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 blah. Here's why I'm not that good. That is part of a losing mentality. That is part of a culture of losing, and we're not putting up with it. And if you're going to be on this team, you better come ready to work. You better come ready to work. I think it sent a statement, and I applaud Coach Cutter for dealing with that. I also applaud Coach Cutter for not really going into details that much on what's going on, because this is something between a player and his coach, and they're going to have to handle it. I don't know if any of you guys ever played sports. I assume probably a lot of you did, maybe not all. I certainly did. And I'll tell you what, there's an interesting thing about a coach. You will let a coach talk to you, speak to you, and make you do things that you would not let anyone else do. You will let a coach whoop your butt because they're your coach, because they're just trying to make you better. They're just trying to help you win. And you understand that. And there's a bond that happens between a player and a coach that allows that kind of relationship to happen. And I think that's really what was happening here with Coach Cutter. So it really does. It speaks highly to the fact that we are trying to change our culture. So then something that doesn't mesh with our culture is really what ASJ did on Twitter. He went after fans. You guys hear that? He went after the fans. Now, fans were kind of popping off on him, and I'm not saying that they should have, but he was coming back at them and popping off, and he went after the fans. ASJ, if you're ever listening to this, let me explain something to you, brother. If fans don't buy tickets and come to the games, if fans don't buy jerseys, if fans don't come out there and get beer, if fans don't come out there and get hot dogs and burgers at the stadium, if fans don't support the team, if fans don't watch on TV, then guess what happens to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? They go down. Guess what happens to you? You don't get your paycheck, son. You hear me? You don't get your paycheck. So, Bucs fans, what are we going to do with him? What are we going to do with ASJ? Because now we're in this situation. He's popped off. He's done got kicked out, and he done popped off. All right, that's two whammies. What do we do with him? Well, guys, I think the answer really lies in something that Jason Light said coming into this last year's draft. I believe he was actually specifically talking about Noah Spence, and certainly it could be applied to even Jameis Winston from the previous year. And the question is that Jason Light, when people are asking him, what do you do with these players that seem to have issues coming in? And Jason Light said, listen, you've got to stop and you've got to ask yourself, is this a maturity issue or is this a character issue? If it's a maturity issue, we can deal with that. If it's a maturity issue, just because they're a young player, they can grow out of that. They can be coached. They can be mentored. We can help them with that. You look at a guy like Noah Spence. Noah Spence is a guy that I praised. I praised him in episode 1 in his draft, where he fell to the second round, presumably because of some past drug problems that he actually even admitted to. But he admitted to him, he grew up, he got clean, he stayed clean, he submitted all of his drug records to all the teams, and he's a fantastic player, wound up getting a second chance, not with Ohio State, his original school, but with Western Kentucky, which I know may seem like it's a drop down, but it still is a decent school. They turned out a guy that went number 2 in the draft. So you have a guy like that. That was just a maturity issue. You look at Jameis Winston and him, quote unquote, stealing some crab legs, or a guy who, cursed out somebody in a cafeteria or something, like whatever all those things were. Those are maturity issues. Or is it a character issue? Because you see, guys, a character issue is much deeper than just age. A character issue is something that talks about the core of who you are as a person. It talks about who you are as a man. Are you a man or are you a boy? It's a character issue. And if it's a character issue, then we can't have you. If it's a character issue, you can't be a part of this team, because that's not what we're bringing in to this culture. That's a toxic thing, and you're not going to bring in something that's poison. You're not going to intentionally insert poison into your organization. So guys, let's take a look at it, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure what it is. I'm not 100% sure, and I'm not ready to just hand down a judgment of saying this is a character issue, and so therefore he should be dismissed. So let's take a look at these two. Let's look at it and let's say it's a maturity issue. Okay, let's look at some things surrounding that. Austin Sefarian Jenkins is 23. That's basically 2 years past college age. Most people graduate 21, maybe even 22. So he's a guy who is just kind of past college. And that's a time when, truthfully, and I'd say really from that 22 to about 25, 26 years old, I remember being that age. I really remember I kept trying to act and behave and pretend like I was in college, and I wasn't anymore. I remember hanging out still with college kids when I was that age, but I wasn't in college anymore. I was just this guy who had a job and had graduated a couple weeks ago. I tell you, I was doing a show this last weekend. Some of you may or may not know that when I'm not on this podcast, I am a stand-up comedian. And one of the things that I hate in my audience is this particular age group. I hate them in my audience because I don't connect with them very well. They're not my type of person. I don't deal well with college crowds. It's just not they don't respond to me, and I tend to not respond to them very well. Nothing against them. That's just not me. And I was at a show where literally half the room was this age group of people. And it was amazing to watch. There was a handful of comedians on that night, and they squashed the entire room. Just the one half of the room that wasn't that age didn't know if it was okay for them to laugh or not, because the other half of the room was just stodgy and just was not into the show because we weren't delivering their type of material. And I'm not really sure why they were there, but I could put that on the audience all I want. The truth is that I don't have anything that can capture that age group. And maybe I just need to get better. Maybe I need to get better and develop things that when I see that in my audience, that I can go to that material and use that. That actually is probably something I really need to try to do. But as it is right now, the material that I have and what I do just doesn't work with that age group. And it's really okay. It's okay if it doesn't. But my point of that being that's just a hard age to be, because you don't know, like, am I this young, hotshot, flashy kid, young man who's now an adult who can do what he wants to do, but you haven't hit that maturity factor yet where you've said, oh, no, wait, I've actually got to be a role model to other people. There are people who are looking up to me. I'm a warrior who's out here fighting a battle for life. And there are others that are counting on me. I don't think ASJ has hit that spot yet. And you can look at other young men. You can look at guys like, and I'll just pick on him, Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston is a guy who is wise beyond his years. He has a wisdom, he has a maturity that is really beyond, and it would betray that 20 years old that he is, or 21, or however old he is. He's not very old. And that's part of what makes him such a special player. But I would say that ASJ is really just more normal. He's the guy who's 2-3 years out of college still playing beer pong. Like, come on, man, that's not our game anymore. Well, we've graduated onto something harder, you know what I'm saying? So I would say this. ASJ definitely needs to grow up. And this is his opportunity to do so and to learn. Maybe this will be a situation that calls him to grow up, that shakes him out of his youthfulness. There's a cool passage in the Bible, and I'm not an overly religious person, but I do like this passage. I think it's Paul he said, when I was a kid, I thought and I spoke as a kid. But when I was an adult, I thought and spoke as an adult, and I had to put away the things of a child. And that's what ASJ needs to do right now, is he needs to put away the things of a child and become a man. So it could be a maturity issue, guys. Or perhaps it's a character issue. A character issue. He's telling people to come fight him. He's saying your mom jokes. He's telling people he's going to steal their girlfriends. He's telling people he slept with their mama the night before. Really? Oh, man. ASJ, these are your fans. These are fans of the Buccaneers you're talking to, pal. You can't do that. Okay, but here's the actual question for him at this point, is can he be teachable? How is he going to choose to respond to this situation now that the mistake has been made? Better to have never made it at all, but now that it's been made, how is he going to respond to it? Is he going to be able to admit that he's messed up? Is he going to be able to admit that not only did he mess up with the fans, but he messed up in practice, that he did not prepare like he should, that maybe he didn't train like he should, maybe he didn't bounce back from injury like he should? Can he admit that? And can he fix it? Can he humble himself? Can he come back? Can he be better? Can he get into that playbook? Listen, ASJ, if you're listening to this, no one is great unto themselves. You can't walk around and just go, man, I'm a man. Ain't nobody can tell me what to do. I'm a great player. I was picked number 2 in the draft. Nobody can tell me what to do. Listen, man, if that's your attitude, then that's when you need to go. If you can't be taught, then you got to go. Man, you got to get in the book. You got to get in that playbook. You got to study. You got to be in the gym. You got to be learning. This is your job, big boy. You're not a kid anymore. It's time to wake up. And guys, if he can't do that, if Austin Sefarian Jenkins cannot humble himself, cannot admit his responsibility, don't worry about what Coach Cutter's part of that was. The only thing you can handle, ASJ, is yourself. All right, don't worry about what somebody else's mistake might have been. Let's talk about your mistake. And that's the only thing you need to worry about, is your mistake, because it's the only thing you can control, man. You can't control what other people do, but you can control what you do. Or if you can't do that, then let me tell you what, ASJ, you are now a toxic part of this team, and you need to be let go. You guys remember a couple years ago, Josh Freeman became a toxic member of the team. He was toxic to the locker room. And even though they kept him on the payroll, even though they didn't cut him just yet, he was not allowed to be with the team. You guys remember that? I certainly do. Toxicity has to go. I don't care how talented you are. Guys, make no mistake. Tampa Bay is better with Austin Sefarian Jenkins on the team, on the roster, from a talent level. If he can stay healthy, if he can stay focused and not make stupid mistakes, Austin Sefarian Jenkins is a good player. And we can use him. Now let's talk a little bit of truth about our tight end position. Guys, our tight end position is stacked. We got a great tight end position. In fact, ASJ, I'm pretty sure he was listed as the number 2, maybe the number 3 tight end going into the offseason. He wasn't even a number 1. We had some other people listed as number 1 and number 2, I believe. I think he was number 3. And especially when you add in Danny Vitale is his name. We got Luke Stocker, Brandon Myers, Cameron Brate. We got a pretty good situation happening there at tight end. We don't need him. And even if we did need him, a lot less do we need the toxicity that he's going to bring. If ASJ turns into a toxic person, then he's got to go, people. I have no problems with that. Now, I say that to say we've got to be careful not to dismiss passion and players getting heated for toxicity. You can't confuse the two. I want my players to get passionate. I want them to get heated. I want them to lose their mind. I want them to get mad. That's part of what it is to be in a culture of winning. You better get mad when you don't make your plays. But if you just slough it off like it's something else, man, we got no use for you. So guys, here we are at the end. I am not one who is calling for a summary dismissal from the team. I'm not calling for Jason Licht and Coach Cutter to trade him or to just cut him. I'm not doing that. Not right now, I'm not. I am calling for ASJ to grow up, though. And I am calling for Jason Licht and Coach Cutter to take a strong look at the character of this young man and make a decision based on what they see as his character. Can he be taught? Is he willing to humble himself? And make that decision for the health of the team. And if after that, Coach Cutter and Jason Licht, if you guys decide to cut him, I'm with you. 100% with you. ASJ needs to grow up. We don't necessarily need to dismiss him from the team unless this proves to be a character issue. Guys, I think that's going to wrap it up for this bonus contents edition of the Pewter Cast. This is talking about the ASJ situation, guys. Thanks for tuning in so much. And please be sure to go over to iTunes, subscribe to us on iTunes, and leave us a review. Hey, listen, some of you guys have already been leaving some reviews. That's cool. Here's a little reminder. I said that in our last episode, if we get 25 iTunes reviews for this coming season, I'm going to add an extra show every single week to the podcast, where what I'll do is as soon as the game's over, as soon as I can get to my recording equipment, I'll record a quick instant take of the game, and we'll put that up, and that'll come up really just as soon as we possibly can get that out before the main show, which will come up a little bit later in the week. So guys, go over to iTunes, look for the Pewter Cast, leave us a review. Would love to hear your thoughts on that. Please shoot me your thoughts on this whole idea with the ASJ situation. Do you agree with me? What do you think? Is this a character issue or is it a maturity issue? Do you think we should just go ahead and dismiss him, or do we need to wait and let them do and see what happens and see if he can recover from this? See if the character issues can be set aside and this is really just a maturity issue. What do you think? Drop me a line, thepewtercast@gmail.com, or at thepewtercast on Twitter and over on Facebook. Hey guys, y'all have a great week. We'll be back at you here really soon with episode 4 coming out. Much love to all the fans out there. Go Bucs.